Sometimes, loyalty waits longer than hope itself. The rain fell in sheets over the quiet suburban bus stop in Silverton, every drop shimmering in the dim glow of the streetlight, creating ripples across puddles that stretched like mirrors along the asphalt. The wind carried the faint scent of wet pine from the nearby park, brushing past Ethan Walker's coat as he approached the empty benches, his boots crunching softly against the soaked concrete. Street signs swayed slightly, the soft hum of distant traffic mingling with the rhythmic patter of raindrops, setting a cadence that seemed to echo the pulse of the city itself. On the far edge of the bus stop, Rex, a German shepherd with fur darker than storm clouds and amber eyes sharp as lanterns, sat motionless, tail curled around his paws, staring down the road as though reading the invisible messages carried by the wind. Each gust lifted a few strands of his fur, revealing the faint scars of his early days, hints of survival and lessons learned, yet his posture remained regal, patient, unwavering. Ethan paused, noting the silhouette, heart tugging in ways both familiar and unexplainable, as if some hidden memory stirred in the misty night air. The bus stop shelter's fluorescent light flickered once, casting a fleeting glow across Rex's face, highlighting the quiet intelligence in his gaze and the faint shimmer of rainwater clinging to his coat. Around them, the world seemed to have slowed. A lone newspaper fluttered past, landing upside down near a puddle, and a stray leaf spun lazily across the wet pavement. Ethan's breath formed soft clouds in the cool night, each exhale mingling with the mist, carrying unspoken thoughts of missions past, of moments shared and battles survived side by side with Rex. He crouched slightly, letting the sound of his boots on wet concrete soften, and in that moment, the distant rumble of an approaching vehicle felt like a heartbeat, a signal that time was moving even as patience held its rein. Rex's ears twitched at the sound, the small movement almost imperceptible, yet to Ethan, it was a signal, a whisper from the past that spoke of bonds unbroken by distance or absence. A soft growl escaped Rex, low and controlled, not a threat, but a punctuation in the symphony of rain and wind, a subtle reminder of vigilance and loyalty woven into his very being. Ethan knelt, reaching out a hand, his fingers brushing against the cold metal of the bench for balance, and met Rex's gaze fully, a silent exchange of recognition passing between them, electric in its intensity, yet tender in its restraint. Around the bus stop, puddles reflected the flickering light and the raindrops, turning the ordinary concrete into a canvas of shimmering streaks, shadows dancing like quiet witnesses to the unfolding story. Ethan's coat clung damply to his shoulders as he leaned slightly forward, voice unspoken, heart speaking in rhythms known only to those who have walked paths lined with both danger and trust. Every movement of Rex, from the subtle lift of his head to the slow shift of weight onto his front paws, conveyed patience, hope, and a steadfast refusal to abandon a bond that had endured time and distance. The rain continued its gentle assault, the world around them blurred and softened, leaving only the sharp clarity of two souls, one human and one German shepherd, poised at the edge of reunion, the storm outside a silent orchestra accentuating the gravity and intimacy of the moment, as though the universe itself had conspired to hold its breath until the quiet, inevitable acknowledgement passed between Ethan and Rex, a testament to the power of loyalty, patience, and the unspoken promises that bind hearts together even when separated by miles, time, and circumstance. The night had deepened, the rain now a steady whisper against the roof of the small bus shelter, each drop creating tiny concentric circles in the puddles at Ethan Walker's feet. The fog from the nearby river drifted lazily across the street, softening the edges of the lampposts and making the world seem suspended between reality and memory. Ethan shifted his weight, boots pressing into the damp asphalt, feeling the chill seep through the soles and rise slowly into his bones. Yet his attention remained locked on Rex, who had not moved an inch from his position by the edge of the shelter. The German shepherd's ears pricked at every sound, the subtle scuff of a distant car tire, the rustle of a newspaper caught by the wind, the faint hum of neon from a nearby diner, all registered in the precise, deliberate rhythm of his body. Ethan crouched slightly, letting the cold and wet wash over him, and allowed his mind to drift backward to the moments they had shared on the training grounds, to the early mornings when the sun barely rose over the horizon and Rex would sit alert at his side, muscles coiled with readiness, eyes scanning for signals that only Ethan could give. The memory brought a tight ache to his chest, a reminder of their bond, the silent communication that had grown over countless missions and endless walks across open fields and narrow alleyways, a bond that transcended words, a connection that had endured distance and circumstance. He extended a hand slowly, not in haste, but with intention, feeling the subtle shift in the air as Rex's nose twitched and his amber eyes met Ethan's fully, recognition sparking a warmth that cut through the cold. Around them, the city breathed in quiet, the rhythm of raindrops against metal, concrete, and glass forming a subtle symphony that made each moment feel simultaneously monumental and intimate. Ethan's coat was damp along the shoulders, water beading along the seams, yet he did not shiver, his focus entirely on the precise stance of Rex, the way the dog's tail shifted ever so slightly, the subtle lean of his body forward, a signal that patience was yielding to cautious anticipation. Memories mingled with the present, the scent of wet pine from the river, the aroma of coffee from the late-night diner across the street, the faint tang of asphalt and rain on concrete, all combining to create an atmosphere charged with expectation. Ethan whispered softly, not a command but a question, a hope carried in the tones of his voice, and Rex responded with a gentle shift of his weight, a low woof that spoke of acknowledgement and understanding. The street was otherwise empty, the fog swallowing the familiar shapes of buildings and cars, leaving only the two of them suspended in a moment that felt like the breath before a storm and the calm after it simultaneously. Each heartbeat was loud, each breath shared in the quiet space between them, and for a moment, the world seemed to have contracted to the distance between a man and his dog, a gap bridged by years of loyalty, patience, and the quiet expectation that whatever had been lost would eventually return. Ethan's hand remained extended, fingertips brushing against the cold metal of the bench for balance, and as he leaned slightly forward, the subtle twitch of Rex's ears and the glint in his eyes made it clear that recognition had fully blossomed, a silent promise that no matter how long or dark the night, the bond they shared had endured and would endure beyond all else. Each moment of waiting, each second of separation, having only strengthened the trust and understanding that neither time nor distance could ever diminish. The first hint of dawn crept over the horizon, casting a pale golden light across the wet streets of Silverton, illuminating the droplets on Rex's fur and the faint sheen of moisture on Ethan Walker's coat. The bus stop seemed almost ethereal in this soft light, the mist curling gently around the edges of the shelter and the empty benches, making the world feel suspended between night and day, past and present. Ethan took a careful step forward, the gravel crunching softly beneath his boots, and noticed the way Rex's tail shifted slightly, a subtle signal of readiness, a quiet invitation to move. The air smelled faintly of rain-soaked earth and pine from the nearby park, the coolness of early morning brushing against his cheeks, reminding him of countless mornings in training, of endless walks and early drills where trust and timing had been everything. He crouched slightly, eyes level with Rex, letting the silence stretch, filled only with the soft patter of leftover raindrops and the distant hum of a city slowly waking. Rex tilted his head slightly, ears pricking at a far-off sound, a bicycle bell clanging somewhere down the street, and Ethan felt a familiar warmth in his chest, a recognition not just of sound but of shared experience, of the countless moments they had weathered together. Memories of field exercises, of long nights standing guard, of the silent understanding in the midst of unpredictability, surfaced unbidden, intertwining with the present scene at the bus stop. Ethan reached into his coat pocket and adjusted the strap of his bag, the movement small and deliberate, mirrored by a shift in Rex's stance, a subtle readiness, alert but calm, reflecting the depth of their connection. Around them, the city stirred gently, a newspaper rustling along the sidewalk, the faint scent of coffee drifting from a corner cafe, the sound of tires on wet pavement echoing in soft rhythms. Ethan stood taller, shoulders settling, and exhaled slowly, letting the cool air fill his lungs, grounding him in this moment, in the clarity of recognition and anticipation. Rex stepped forward with measured grace, paws leaving small imprints in the damp asphalt, and Ethan mirrored his movement, closing the distance between them in careful steps, feeling the energy shift, the tension of waiting melting into a quiet certainty. The bus stop, once a solitary point in the rain, now became a stage for reunion, the interplay of light and shadow tracing the contours of Rex's alert form and Ethan's attentive posture. Every detail mattered. The glint of wet fur, the subtle lift of an ear, the gentle rise and fall of breath, all speaking in a language beyond words, a dialogue of trust and history. Ethan's eyes softened as he watched Rex move, sensing the anticipation in the muscles beneath the sleek coat, the calm determination that had carried them through countless hours of vigilance. The morning mist thinned slightly, revealing the distant rooftops and the first streaks of sunlight painting the sky in warm tones, a promise of the day ahead and the continuation of a story written in loyalty and steadfast companionship. Each step they took toward each other was measured, intentional, a silent acknowledgement that the bond between them had not wavered, that the shared past and the waiting had culminated in this precise, poignant moment where presence itself was the reward, and the world beyond the bus stop fell away, leaving only the two of them, aligned in purpose, understanding, and quiet, enduring connection. The first bus of the morning had not yet arrived, and the quiet street was filled with the soft patter of water from the lingering drizzle, reflecting the early light in muted golden streaks across the pavement. Ethan Walker took a careful step forward, feeling the damp asphalt beneath his boots and noting the subtle shift in Rex's posture as the dog adjusted his weight, muscles coiling with the familiar alertness that had always signaled readiness and trust. Around them, the world remained hushed, the fog from the river curling slowly around the lampposts, casting long, diffused shadows that intertwined with the scattered puddles, creating a shimmering, almost dreamlike landscape. Ethan allowed himself a slow, deliberate exhale, letting the tension drain from his shoulders, though the anticipation in the air was tangible, a pulse that seemed to synchronize with the rhythm of Rex's steady breathing. He remembered the countless mornings they had spent together, the drills at the training ground where every movement, every glance, carried meaning beyond words, a silent conversation of instinct, trust, and mutual understanding. Rex's amber eyes met Ethan's fully, and in that gaze was the accumulated history of missions endured, early mornings, and the quiet patience that had carried them through separations and waiting. A soft wind rustled the leaves along the sidewalk, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and distant pine, mingling with the subtle aroma of coffee from a nearby diner that had opened for the morning. Ethan crouched slightly, letting his hands rest on his knees, feeling the chill in the air, but also the warmth of the presence before him, the embodiment of loyalty and resilience. Rex shifted one paw, then the other, a measured, almost ceremonial acknowledgement of the distance now closing, and Ethan felt a surge of quiet relief and anticipation, the culmination of patience and steadfastness. Each small movement of Rex was deliberate, the tilt of his head, the subtle flare of his nostrils, the barely perceptible wag of his tail, all conveying an understanding and recognition that words could never capture. Ethan reached out, letting the tips of his fingers hover just above the wet pavement, not touching Rex yet, allowing the dog to make the next choice, the next step in this silent reunion. The bus stop around them seemed suspended, the few morning commuters walking past like ghosts, the sounds of the city softened by the mist and rain, leaving only the two of them and the intricate dance of recognition and trust unfolding. Ethan's eyes followed Rex's careful approach, noting the way the early light highlighted the contours of the dog's sleek coat and the subtle lines of experience along his frame, each movement telling a story of survival, patience, and unwavering devotion. The faint hum of an approaching engine in the distance barely registered as Rex moved a deliberate step closer, ears alert, tail held in a poised curve, and Ethan felt the familiar, unspoken acknowledgement pass between them, a promise that the bond they had nurtured across time and distance remained unbroken. The world around the bus stop, blurred by mist and the residual rain, became a quiet stage for this precise, intimate moment, where every breath, every subtle gesture, carried weight and significance, and the long night of waiting and anticipation finally gave way to the first steps of reunion, trust reaffirmed, and the promise of shared presence once again solidified in the soft light of early morning. The soft glow of the morning continued to expand across Silverton, warming the wet asphalt and casting long, delicate reflections of the lampposts and puddles, turning the ordinary street into a tapestry of light and shadow. Ethan Walker took a careful, deliberate step forward, each footfall producing a subtle echo in the quiet dawn, while Rex moved with a fluid grace, muscles rippling under his dark, sleek coat, tail held in a measured, confident arc, signaling focus and readiness. Around them, the world seemed to hold its breath, the occasional car passing in the distance producing a low hum that blended seamlessly with the rhythmic tapping of raindrops still lingering on the metal and concrete surfaces. Ethan's coat clung damply along his shoulders from the earlier drizzle, and he adjusted the strap of his messenger bag as he walked, but his attention was entirely on Rex, who paused mid-step, nose lifting slightly as he caught a scent on the wind, amber eyes narrowing with keen interest and recognition. The air carried the faint aroma of wet pine from the nearby park and the distant tang of fresh coffee from the diner that had begun to stir, creating an invisible bridge between the present and the countless shared memories etched into their connection. Ethan crouched briefly, letting his hands rest on his knees, and allowed his eyes to meet Rex's fully, sensing the depth of patience, trust, and anticipation emanating from his companion. Every subtle movement of Rex communicated a story of loyalty and understanding. The gentle lift of a paw, the soft flicker of the ears, the tilt of the head, each gesture a language known intimately to Ethan and no one else. The street around them remained hushed, mist curling along the edges of the sidewalk, blurring the line between concrete and sky, creating an almost surreal landscape where time seemed to fold, giving weight to each heartbeat and breath. Ethan whispered softly, not a command but a quiet acknowledgement, and Rex responded with the faintest shift forward, a careful, measured step that signaled readiness to engage fully in the moment. The reflections in the puddles shimmered and wavered with the movement of the morning light in their slow, deliberate progress, amplifying the sense of anticipation and gravity in the quiet street. Ethan's heart beat steadily, synchronized with the rhythm of Rex's careful movements, as though the dog's awareness of him and the surroundings extended beyond instinct into something deeper, an almost tangible connection that bridged past separations and trials endured. Each step they took together was deliberate, precise, a choreography of trust, anticipation, and enduring companionship, as the morning unfurled gently around them, the mist thinning slightly to reveal rooftops, trees, and the muted signs of life beginning in the quiet town, leaving only the steady, intimate dialogue of presence between man and dog, the enduring bond shining through every motion, every glance, and every breath in the serene light of a day that promised continuity, reunion, and quiet, steadfast joy. The sun had risen higher now, spilling warm golden light across the wet pavement, illuminating the subtle shimmer of dew along the edges of the bus stop and the reflective surfaces of puddles that stretched along the street. Ethan Walker adjusted the strap of his bag as he took a deliberate step forward, feeling the cool morning air fill his lungs and the faint scent of rain-soaked asphalt mixed with the aroma of nearby pine trees. Rex moved beside him with deliberate precision, muscles coiled yet relaxed, tail swaying gently with each careful step, ears pricked, eyes scanning the environment with quiet focus. The city around them was waking, the soft hum of distant engines mingling with birdsong from the trees, creating a gentle, almost musical backdrop to the silent intensity of their reunion. Ethan's gaze remained fixed on Rex, noting the subtle nuances in his posture, the slight lift of a paw, the careful tilt of the head, all communicating patience, trust, and an anticipation that words could never convey. He crouched briefly, allowing his hands to rest on his knees, feeling the connection between them pulse quietly yet unmistakably, the unspoken understanding of years spent together and the moments of separation that had only strengthened their bond. The mist from the river had begun to lift, revealing faint outlines of buildings, lampposts, and the slow stir of people starting their day. Yet around Ethan and Rex, time seemed to stretch and fold, as if the world had paused to allow this quiet moment of recognition to fully unfold. Ethan reached slowly into his coat pocket, adjusting the collar of his jacket, the movement mirrored by Rex, who stepped a subtle fraction closer, nose twitching as he picked up scents carried by the breeze, a blend of familiarity and curiosity that deepened the intensity of their connection. Each step they took was measured, deliberate, echoing with the silent rhythm of trust, a choreography built on countless shared experiences, both in past training exercises and in the quiet times where presence itself was the greatest gift. Ethan's eyes softened, reflecting the light of the early morning as he allowed himself to feel the weight and significance of the moment, the culmination of patience, loyalty, and enduring friendship made tangible in the gentle rise and fall of Rex's chest and the precise, purposeful movements of his paws. Around them, the environment remained hushed yet alive, the soft ripple of water in puddles, the gentle sway of leaves in the light breeze, the distant calls of birds, all blending into a symphony that highlighted the intimacy of the connection between man and dog. Ethan took another careful step, and Rex mirrored him perfectly, the space between them shrinking with each movement. Charged with anticipation, yet tempered by patience, the quiet anticipation of reunion fully realized in each shared glance and breath. The light continued to spread, painting everything in warm tones that softened edges and shadows. And in that clarity, both Ethan and Rex moved forward with deliberate care, attuned to each other, their bond unspoken yet profoundly understood, the enduring connection shining through every gesture, every subtle shift in posture, every measured step along the glistening, dew-laden street, a testament to loyalty, trust, and the quiet, steadfast joy of reunion. As the morning light strengthened, casting soft amber hues across the street and reflecting off the lingering puddles, Ethan Walker slowed his steps, allowing Rex to lead the way with measured confidence, each paw pressing into the wet asphalt with deliberate care. The crisp air carried the subtle scent of pine and damp earth, mingling with the faint aroma of fresh coffee from the nearby cafe, and every breath Ethan took seemed to synchronize with the steady rhythm of Rex's movements, the quiet harmony of familiarity and shared history enveloping them. Around the bus stop, the town was beginning to stir, the faint clatter of shutters, the soft roll of tires over distant streets, the occasional murmur of conversation weaving into the background, yet the focus remained entirely on the measured distance between man and dog, the silent communication flowing unbroken across each cautious step. Ethan's eyes softened as he noted the subtle cues in Rex's posture, the tilt of the head, the shift of weight from one paw to the other, the minute flicker of amber eyes that conveyed patience, anticipation, and recognition, a language developed over countless mornings, long walks, and moments where presence alone was enough to reassure and connect. He allowed himself a slow exhale, the mist of his breath curling in the cool morning air, and extended a hand just above the damp pavement, not rushing, not pressing, simply offering space for trust and familiarity to manifest in movement. Rex responded with a gradual, measured approach, ears pricked, eyes locked on Ethan, muscles flexing with poised alertness and restraint, the quiet dignity of a companion who had waited faithfully through hours, days, and the intangible stretch of uncertainty. The reflections in the puddles mirrored the subtle shifts of light and shadow, the glimmer of dawn creating an almost cinematic backdrop that emphasized the intimacy of the moment, the profound connection between two beings who had endured separation yet remained unwaveringly attuned to one another. Ethan adjusted the collar of his coat, the movement small and intentional, and felt the pulse of anticipation in the air, the quiet tension of expectation tempered by the steady, calm assurance emanating from Rex. Every step, every glance, every soft exhale seemed to stretch time, compressing the distance between years of waiting and this precise instant of recognition. The faint rustle of leaves along the sidewalk, the distant hum of the morning city, and the soft shimmer of sunlight on wet surfaces formed a subtle symphony, harmonizing with the unspoken dialogue of man and dog, a rhythm built from trust, history, and the steadfast patience that had carried them to this point. Ethan allowed his gaze to linger, noting the nuanced interplay of light across Rex's sleek fur, the gentle rise and fall of the chest with each controlled breath, the attentive angle of the ears capturing every faint sound, all of it speaking in a language understood deeply and intuitively. The bus stop and the surrounding street receded into a softened frame, emphasizing the delicate choreography of approach and acknowledgement, the careful alignment of presence, expectation, and recognition as Rex drew nearer, each movement deliberate, carrying the quiet weight of loyalty, patience, and the unbroken bond that had endured both time and distance, culminating in a moment pregnant with anticipation, where past and present converged, and the connection between Ethan and Rex spoke more profoundly than words ever could. The morning had fully embraced the town now, bathing the streets in warm golden light that reflected softly off the remaining puddles and the wet pavement, casting elongated shadows of lampposts, benches, and the subtle shapes of trees along the sidewalks. Ethan Walker paused for a moment, feeling the sun on his face, the cool remnants of mist brushing against his skin, and he took a slow, deliberate breath, letting the warmth fill him as he watched Rex move with poised confidence, each paw placement precise and deliberate, tail gently swaying, ears flicking to catch every sound carried by the wind. Around them, the city had begun to stir in earnest. The faint hum of tires on wet roads, the distant clatter of shutters and doors opening, the soft murmur of voices from early risers, yet all of it seemed muted, filtered through the lens of anticipation and focus that enveloped Ethan and Rex. He lowered himself slightly to the level of the dog, hand extended, but allowing Rex to set the pace, and as the dog took a careful, measured step forward, their eyes met fully, a silent exchange of recognition, relief, and enduring bond passing between them. The reflections in the puddles shimmered, capturing the interplay of light, shadow, and movement, creating a fluid canvas that mirrored the careful choreography of reunion unfolding before the quiet morning backdrop. Ethan's heart beat in quiet rhythm with the measured steps of Rex, the familiar cadence of loyalty and companionship resonating in every subtle movement. The tilt of the head, the soft lift of a paw, the controlled shift of weight, all gestures imbued with trust, memory, and anticipation. The distant aroma of pine and rain-soaked asphalt mingled with the faint scent of fresh coffee from the corner cafe, anchoring Ethan to the present while the shared history with Rex unfurled silently in his mind. The countless walks, quiet mornings, and patient waits coalescing into the singular importance of this precise moment. The mist had lifted almost entirely now, revealing the textures of the street, the delicate patterns of sunlight on wet surfaces, and the soft outlines of buildings and foliage. Yet the focus remained entirely on the measured distance closing between man and dog, the culmination of enduring patience, unwavering trust, and mutual recognition. Every breath Ethan drew seemed amplified, filled with gratitude and the quiet awe of a bond that had endured separation and uncertainty, now manifesting in a subtle, poignant movement forward. Rex's amber eyes held a depth of understanding, a reflection of countless shared experiences, silent encouragement, and steadfast presence, and with each step, the gap between them lessened, charged with the unspoken weight of reunion, the reassurance of companionship restored, and the quiet joy that comes from enduring loyalty finally acknowledged. The bus stop and the surrounding street receded into softened edges, the world beyond fading slightly to emphasize the intimacy of the moment, as Ethan and Rex moved closer with deliberate grace, the bond between them palpable, every gesture, glance, and subtle shift resonating with the certainty that patience, loyalty, and trust had led them to this inevitable, tender convergence, where time, distance, and waiting dissolved into the quiet, profound affirmation of connection, presence, and unbroken companionship. The street beyond the bus stop began to glimmer with the first hints of activity, the sun climbing higher, spilling light across the wet asphalt, and catching the droplets that still clung to the edges of benches and lampposts, creating fleeting prisms that danced with each subtle movement. Ethan Walker adjusted the sleeve of his coat, feeling the damp fabric cling to his arm, and allowed himself to pause, taking in the full scope of the morning, the gentle warmth beginning to counter the lingering chill from the night's drizzle. Rex, poised at the edge of the shelter, shifted slightly, nostrils flaring as he caught a familiar scent carried lightly on the breeze, eyes narrowing with quiet focus, muscles coiled with the perfect balance of restraint and readiness. Around them, the town was stirring. A faint clatter of dishes from a distant cafe, the soft rumble of a delivery truck along wet streets, birds calling from the treetops with crisp morning clarity, yet none of it intruded on the intimate tension between man and dog. The careful choreography of reunion unfolding with deliberate, almost reverential pacing. Ethan crouched slightly, hand resting on his knee, feeling the steady pulse of anticipation in the air, the rhythm of trust and shared history vibrating in the space between them. Memories surfaced unbidden, of long mornings at training grounds, of quiet walks along forest trails, of moments where simple presence had been enough to reassure and connect, each memory layering the significance of the current moment with warmth and depth. Rex took a careful step forward, and Ethan mirrored the movement, each of their strides deliberate, measured, harmonized, a silent dialogue of acknowledgement and recognition carried through posture, gaze, and breath. The reflections in the puddles shimmered with each subtle motion, capturing the interplay of light, shadow, and movement, a fluid reminder of patience rewarded and connections reaffirmed. The cool air carried the faint scent of pine mingled with asphalt and rain, anchoring Ethan in the present as the unspoken conversation with Rex continued, each glance and subtle shift conveying understanding and reassurance. The distant hum of morning activity faded to the edges of perception, leaving only the precise, careful, deliberate motions of two beings attuned to each other, the bond between them unmistakable in its clarity. Ethan allowed a slow, deep exhale, the mist rising from his breath curling gently into the light, and stepped just a fraction closer, eyes never leaving Rex, noting the careful coordination of movement, the subtle signals communicated through posture and gaze, the trust and patience built over years reflected in each deliberate action. Rex's tail shifted slightly, ears lifting in a barely perceptible acknowledgement, a confirmation that the connection had been recognized fully and that the space between anticipation and action had narrowed to a fine point. Every small sound, the tap of a boot on wet pavement, the faint rustle of leaves, the soft clink of metal from a distant railing, was absorbed into the shared rhythm of presence, the unspoken agreement of trust and recognition now fully manifest. Ethan took another step forward, and Rex responded in kind, closing the gap with deliberate precision, the careful balance of restraint, patience, and acknowledgement bringing them to a point where every movement resonated with the quiet triumph of reunion, the enduring strength of companionship, and the deep, unshakable reassurance of mutual understanding, as the warm morning light wrapped around them, lending a quiet, almost sacred clarity to the space they now fully shared. The moment had arrived with quiet inevitability, the golden morning light spilling fully across the streets of Silverton, turning every droplet, every sheen on the asphalt into tiny prisms that shimmered with the warmth of the rising sun. Ethan Walker stood perfectly still for a heartbeat, feeling the steady rhythm of his own breathing align with the soft, deliberate movements of Rex beside him, the German shepherd's amber eyes bright with recognition and restrained excitement. The distant hum of the city was now fully awake, the faint scrape of tires on wet roads, the soft murmur of voices drifting from shop fronts, the occasional call of a bird from the trees lining the street, yet all of it faded into a gentle backdrop, as if the world had softened itself to honor this quiet convergence of loyalty and presence. Ethan stepped forward, extending a hand fully now, open and inviting, his fingers brushing briefly against the air before Rex, with a deliberate, measured motion, advanced and pressed gently into Ethan's legs, a subtle but unmistakable gesture of connection, trust, and recognition. The motion sent a warmth through Ethan's chest, a gentle, steady current of relief and affirmation that years of separation, patience, and quiet devotion had not diminished the bond between them. The reflections in the puddles mirrored the careful choreography unfolding. The soft shimmer of light across Rex's fur, the slight ripple as the dog shifted his weight, the golden glow catching on Ethan's coat, and the interplay of shadow and warmth creating a cinematic frame for this reunion. Ethan's voice remained quiet, barely a whisper, carrying in it the full weight of acknowledgement and affection, and Rex responded with a soft nudge of his head, ears tilting, tail lifting slightly, muscles relaxed yet alert, the language between them precise, rich, and entirely unspoken. Around them, the street, the bus stop, and the small stretch of town that lay in this morning light became secondary to the singular focus of their interaction, the quiet intimacy of connection, recognition, and mutual joy taking precedence over everything else. Ethan crouched slightly, letting the gesture invite closer contact, and Rex leaned in, pressing fully into the moment, the subtle warmth of his body and the steady beat of his presence reassuring Ethan of continuity, loyalty, and enduring trust. Each breath Ethan drew seemed to stretch the seconds, lengthening the moment into a quiet eternity, while the subtle sounds of life in the town, the rustle of leaves, the distant scrape of shutters, the soft cadence of footsteps, underscored the serenity and significance of this reunion. The morning mist had entirely lifted, leaving only clarity, the bond between man and dog, affirmed and visible in every subtle gesture, every careful movement, every shared glance, resonating with the quiet power of loyalty, patience, and the profound joy of connection restored. As Ethan placed his hand lightly on Rex's shoulder, feeling the warmth and steady weight of his companion, a sense of peace settled fully into the street, the bus stop, and the space between them, marking the moment as a delicate yet profound testament to endurance, trust, and the quiet, unspoken grace that binds two souls together through absence, time, and the unwavering fidelity of a companion. The quiet intensity of the morning had softened into a gentle warmth, sunlight streaming fully across the street, illuminating every puddle, every reflective surface along the bus stop and pavement with a golden glow. Ethan Walker moved slowly, deliberately, each step measured as he allowed Rex to guide the pace, the dog's movements precise, muscles rippling under a sleek, dark coat, tail swaying gently with each careful placement of a paw. Around them, the town was alive with subtle activity, the distant hum of tires along wet streets, a soft chorus of birdsong, and the faint clatter of shutters opening on small shops, yet all of it receded into the background, leaving only the rhythm shared between man and dog, the quiet cadence of anticipation and presence. Ethan crouched slightly, keeping his eyes level with Rex, noticing every nuanced shift in posture, the tilt of the head, the controlled lift of a paw, the steady focus of amber eyes, each movement speaking the language of trust, patience, and unbroken connection. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of pine and damp asphalt, carrying the memory of countless mornings together on forest trails and training grounds, every detail reminding Ethan of the bond they had nurtured over years of presence, waiting, and shared experience. Rex stepped forward carefully, and Ethan mirrored the motion, closing the space between them in a slow, deliberate dance, a choreography of recognition and reassurance, where the smallest gestures carried profound meaning. The reflections in the puddles shimmered as the light shifted, highlighting the interplay of shadow, motion, and color, transforming the ordinary street into a canvas that captured the intimacy and significance of the moment. Ethan extended his hand, not commanding, but offering presence, and Rex leaned in, pressing gently, muscles relaxing as if in silent affirmation of the connection and recognition now fully realized. Around them, the soft whisper of wind, the distant call of a bird, and the gentle murmur of awakening life blended seamlessly with the quiet breathing of man and dog, forming a symphony of patience, trust, and enduring companionship. Ethan's chest rose and fell with steady breaths, each exhale releasing tension and affirming presence, while Rex responded with subtle shifts and gentle nudges, a language understood deeply and entirely without words. The golden sunlight now cast long shadows along the wet pavement, emphasizing the contours of Rex's form, the gentle rise and fall of his chest, and the careful, deliberate movements that conveyed loyalty, understanding, and the culmination of hours of patient waiting. Ethan allowed a slow smile to touch his lips, the warmth of the moment filling the space between them, as every small gesture, every glance, every subtle interaction spoke of connection restored, trust reaffirmed, and the quiet joy that comes from enduring companionship. The world beyond the bus stop softened, the town awakening around them, yet fading into secondary importance as Ethan and Rex moved together. The gap closed fully now, the bond unbroken, the shared history tangible in every motion and breath, a testament to the quiet strength of patience, loyalty, and the enduring power of friendship between human and dog. The morning had grown warmer, sunlight spilling across Silverton in a soft cascade that painted the streets and buildings in gentle hues of gold and amber, turning every remaining puddle into a mirror of the sky above. Ethan Walker stood beside Rex, feeling the calm certainty of the moment settle fully between them, the bond that had endured separation and waiting now radiating in every subtle gesture and measured breath. Around the bus stop, the town had awakened. Shutters rattled softly, tires hummed along wet roads, and the distant murmur of early risers created a gentle soundtrack to the intimate choreography of reunion unfolding on the pavement. Ethan adjusted his coat, the fabric still damp from the early drizzle, and took a slow, deliberate step closer to Rex, who responded with a careful, poised movement, muscles relaxed yet alert, tail swaying gently, ears pricked, amber eyes focused with unwavering attention. The air carried the fresh scent of pine and damp asphalt, mingling with the faint aroma of brewing coffee from the cafe nearby, creating a sensory tapestry that anchored Ethan in the present while connecting the moment to countless shared memories of walks, training, and quiet mornings together. Every subtle movement of Rex, the tilt of the head, the gentle lift of a paw, the careful shift of weight, communicated the depth of trust and understanding cultivated over years, a silent dialogue carried in posture, gaze, and breath. Ethan crouched slightly, letting the motion invite further closeness, and Rex leaned in, pressing gently against his companion, a physical manifestation of recognition, reassurance, and loyalty fully realized. Reflections shimmered in puddles at their feet, capturing the interplay of light, shadow, and motion, emphasizing the intimacy of the reunion and the unspoken affirmation of enduring companionship. Ethan's heart beat steadily, in rhythm with the soft cadence of Rex's careful movements. As the quiet intensity of their connection deepened, every breath and glance reinforcing the unbroken bond that had weathered time, distance, and anticipation. The street, the bus stop, and the surrounding town faded into softened periphery, allowing the focus to remain on the precise, deliberate interaction between man and dog, each small gesture conveying patience, presence, and the profound satisfaction of reunion. Ethan allowed a gentle smile to touch his lips, the warmth of the sun on his face and the steady weight of Rex's body against him blending into a moment of serene clarity. The culmination of years of loyalty and patience reflected in the smallest of details, the rise and fall of a chest, the soft flick of an ear, the tilt of an attentive head, each element resonating with the quiet, unshakable joy of companionship restored. Around them, the subtle sounds of the waking town, the soft ripple of leaves in a gentle breeze, distant conversations, the faint hum of morning traffic, underscored the significance of the moment, a testament to trust, endurance, and the grace of bonds that neither time nor distance could diminish, leaving Ethan and Rex enveloped in the quiet affirmation of presence, the steady, comforting rhythm of loyalty fully realized, and the enduring joy of two souls reunited in mutual understanding and steadfast connection. The day had fully opened now, sunlight spilling generously across Silverton, casting long, warm reflections in every remaining puddle and highlighting the gentle curves of the bus stop benches and the subtle textures of the street. Ethan Walker stood with Rex beside him, feeling the steady, calming weight of the dog's presence and the quiet completion of a journey long in waiting. The air carried the faint, pleasant scent of pine mingled with the warm aroma of fresh coffee from the corner cafe, while distant sounds, the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft hum of morning traffic, and the occasional chirp of a bird formed a serene backdrop that amplified the intimacy of the moment. Ethan adjusted his coat, letting the fabric settle comfortably across his shoulders, and he took a deep, deliberate breath, feeling the quiet satisfaction of patience and loyalty fulfilled. Rex shifted slightly, nudging gently against Ethan's leg, amber eyes bright and attentive, muscles relaxed yet poised, communicating in the precise, unspoken language that had developed over years of shared mornings, walks, and subtle, patient exchanges of trust. Ethan crouched slightly, meeting Rex's gaze fully, allowing a slow, soft smile to spread across his face, the warmth of the light and the presence of his companion filling him with quiet joy. Around them, the town continued its awakening, yet the movement and noise of the streets seemed distant, secondary to the quiet ceremony of their reunion. Each gesture, glance, and breath imbued with significance, meaning, and the affirmation of a bond that had endured absence, separation, and the passage of time. Ethan extended a hand gently, letting it hover in space as an invitation rather than a command, and Rex responded with deliberate care, stepping closer, chest brushing lightly against Ethan, tail swaying in gentle acknowledgement of connection fully realized. The reflections in the puddles mirrored the soft glimmer of sunlight on wet surfaces, the subtle interplay of shadow and light, enhancing the serenity and intimacy of the moment, capturing the essence of loyalty, endurance, and unwavering presence. Every detail mattered: the tilt of Rex's head, the careful placement of each paw, the soft rise and fall of his chest, the subtle warmth emanating from his body, all resonating with Ethan's own awareness of trust regained, companionship restored, and the quiet fulfillment of mutual recognition. The surrounding town, though alive with the faint stirrings of morning, seemed to soften around them, drawing focus inward to the precise choreography of their interaction, the careful balance of anticipation, patience, and profound joy. Ethan's breath slowed, deepened, aligning with the steady, measured presence of Rex, each moment stretching delicately, allowing the intimacy of connection and the affirmation of enduring loyalty to settle fully into the space between them. Light danced across the wet pavement, capturing the movement, the shadows, and the subtle glimmers of warmth on Rex's fur, highlighting every gesture and breath as if the morning itself conspired to illuminate the quiet triumph of reunion. Ethan reached down, fingers brushing gently along Rex's back, and the dog leaned in slightly, a silent acknowledgement of trust, recognition, and enduring companionship, the final affirmation of a bond that had been tested by time, separation, and patient waiting, now realized in the soft, radiant clarity of a morning that held still in quiet grace and steadfast connection, a testament to loyalty, presence, and the unspoken joy of two souls reunited in perfect harmony.